It's time for Wise Money with Korhorn Financial Group with certified financial planners Kevin Korhorn, Mike Bernard, and Josh Gregory.
Welcome to another episode of the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group, where every week we're helping you take your next wise step in your financial life. Thanks for being here, friends. My name is Mike Bernard. I'm your host. I'm also one of the certified financial planners on the program. And with me in the KFG studios, my business partners and fellow CFPs, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory.
Reaching $1 million in retirement savings, that's a big milestone in a lot of people's financial lives. But does it mean that when you reach that level of investment savings that you can just stop saving entirely? On this episode of the Wise Money Show, we're going to explore the deeper question behind the $1 million goal and discuss whether it really is the target. Is that the real finish line? We're going to cover that and more on this episode.
Wrapping up our 10th season of the Wise Money Show. Seems like we just started. And I'll tell you, there's already a decent number of bloopers this morning. And Lindsay does a great job producing the show and putting the blooper reel on the YouTube channel. So make sure you go check that out. But we're feeding that content already. We're going to help you, though, with your retirement goal. If you have a question for the program, we'd love to hear from you. You can call or text us, 574-222-2000. That's 574-222-2000. Online, wisemoneyshow.com is where you can find us. And then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Just search The Wise Money Show. Okay, guys, the debate with being a millionaire which was a fantastic show. I don't watch game shows anymore. And, of course, that was a different era and whatnot. But what a great show. Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Is that Regis?
Regis, yeah. Okay, but here's the question now. What is a millionaire? That's not even like who wants to be it. What is it? Is it, well, I've got $1 million net worth, or I've got $1 million saved up in the bank or in retirement assets? The debate is out. How would you cast your vote?
Man, I don't know. We look at clients' balance sheets with them on a regular basis. They define their net worth. We help them to calculate what are all the things that you own and subtract out the things that you owe and get this bottom line net worth number. And it's a number that we track on an ongoing basis, not because that's some magic number or that's something to take pride in or anything, but it's often a sign of good health if that number is growing over time. Yep. But I'm always quick to tell people the number that really matters is the retirement assets that you're going to eventually live off of. Yeah. That number needs to be accumulating and growing. The value of your house going up or the number of cars that you've purchased or everything, I don't know. I think of those as more of lifestyle assets and less relevant than the retirement nest egg type number.
What do you think?
Yeah, when I think of $1 million, I was thinking as we were preparing for the show, I started my career in 1994. So if in 1994 there weren't a lot of people that had $1 million. But if you had $1 million, in order to buy the same basket of goods and services today, you would need $2,193,000. Wow. Now, if you said, well, but I have $1 million today, and when I think of $1 million, I think usable assets. Because you say, well, my home, and I was talking to a guy this morning who just read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, talking about his home, and I said, well, what's your home? And he said, it's a liability. That is correct, Amundo. Yep. Assets generate income.
I mean, as I just talked to a friend of ours who had a raccoon infestation in their attic. Yes, houses are liability. And right, because you've got to maintain these things, and they don't produce income for you. They take resources from you. Now, they can appreciate, right? They can appreciate in value. We had home values go up, 40% since 2020 with all the money we've printed and everything. So that's pretty astounding. I wouldn't plan on that happening again.
Yeah, I mean, there's two ways of saying it. Home values went up or the dollars became worth less.
Exactly.
But so the other question, the other way I'd look at it is if I had $1 million today, what would I have had in 1994? And in 1994, I would have had $456,000. So in 1994, $456,000 was the equivalent of $1 million today.
So you're making the case that, because I have always said when I get this question, which feels like it's only come up recently since we printed all this money and depreciated our dollars and all that sort of stuff. But it's no, $1 million net worth, $1 million net worth. But Kevin, you're making the case that no, that benchmark really probably should move. if you're looking at this as a milestone, which is sort of what we're bantering about, and probably aim for having $1 million saved up, liquid.
Right. And I was also talking to a guy who said, yeah, back in the 80s, I paid $1 million. We paid $1 million cash for this business. Well, brother, in $1 million cash in the 80s, that was real money. So it is confusing because you used to think, oh, if I could just make this amount of money, or if I just had this amount of money saved. But you are right, Michael, Paul, Roth, Bernard, that it changes over time. And if you're not paying attention to that, and if you don't, and this is where, I know this is a show about financial planning, and we're not specifically talking about investments, but if you don't have a compound annual growth rate of 8%, you're not going to be able to stay ahead of the deflation.
You just put $1 million in the Roth. Put that. You just put that idea in my head. Go get it. Go do it. $1 million. Imagine that. Yeah. Having $1 million in your Roth IRA, Roth 401k, never to be taxed again in your lifetime.
That'd be
awesome. Go do it. Go work with your CFP.
I looked this up prior to the show. As of last year, 2024, there were almost 24 million millionaires in the U.S. More than any other country. I'm not surprised by that. But if you were looking at, well, how many of those Americans have at least $1 million of investments, it's a tiny fraction.
Really?
According to this data, closer to 500,000 people have at least $1 million in retirement accounts.
Okay, so if we're going to define it for today as having $1 million saved up, how far does that go? What can that afford in retirement? You've got, say you reach that goal of having $1 million saved up in liquid resources for retirement. Mm-hmm. What does retirement look like?
Well, at the risk of sounding like a politician, tell me where you live. Mm-hmm. Because we are working with clients all over the country who have found us on the YouTube channel or podcast, and they've said, "Hey, we like what you're doing, and it seems like you're a good fit. Will you help us?" And we're helping people all over the country. But I can tell you this: there's a huge difference between how far $1 million goes in South Bend, Indiana, versus Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Or Los Angeles, California, or fill in the blank.
And I would even stratify that even more, because even within South Bend, you could have different lifestyles represented here as well.
Certainly.
And so I love your question. Show me where you live. Mm-hmm. Show me also how you live, because the amount that you're going to live off of in retirement, that's going to dictate what it takes for you to be able to live a comfortable lifestyle, whether it's $1 million or half that amount.
Yeah, I mean, we're weaving towards the question of if $1 million saved up liquid is the goal. Well, once you hit that, can you just stop saving? We're going to get there, but withdrawal rates, a sustainable withdrawal rate. You probably have heard of this if you're financial inquisitive. That there's a 4% withdrawal rule. Now, this was some crude math done in early 90s, where rolling time periods of a mix between the S&P 500 and the bond or cash. I believe the original analysis was just stocks and cash, or maybe just stocks and bonds, not a diversified portfolio, showed that a safe, sustainable withdrawal rate is 4% out of your portfolio. That should last about 25 years. So starting at age 65, getting you to about 90. And so think about this, $1 million, 4%, that's 40 grand.
Yeah.
And a lot of people look at that and say, 40 grand plus my Social Security, that's not quite the lifestyle that I would want or I would feel is necessary for my retirement.
Maybe, maybe not. It depends on what you've gotten used to, but we're always quick to remind clients that when you get to retirement, life will be different. You've maybe finished launching kids from the nest. You're done saving aggressively for retirement at that point. Maybe you've paid off your mortgage. You've just done some things to reduce what the demands are on your spending. What's the monthly budget need to look like? And so it's possible that you could get to the end of your working career, you're earning way more than $80,000 a year, but you're living off of it comfortably when you get to retirement.
Yeah.
It's an interesting paradox here.
In addition to that 4%, the current yield on the S&P 500, if you say, I just want to live on dividends, current yield is around 1.2. I mean, that is a meager income on your $1 million. And if you say, no, I want high dividend, I'm just going to do that, maybe you can get double that. It's not going to stretch that far. You need a comprehensive plan. And but we're going to get to this question. Once you have $1 million saved up, or whatever that magic number is for you, can you stop saving? We got that more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Hello, YouTube. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show. What you're watching right now is our 1-hour talk show that airs right here on this channel, 10 a.m. Eastern, every Saturday morning. Also on podcast at the same time, and also on a couple local radio stations at the same time as well, which is why the content's broken up the way that it is. We've got segments and all that sort of stuff, and it's long form. And if that's not your flavor, good news. We've got Next Wise Step videos that air all throughout the work week right here on this channel as well. So lots of content, 8 minutes long, 10 minutes long, that takes one financial concept, applies it directly to your financial life. Also that you can take your next wise step in your finances. So if that sounds great, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. If you like the content, Thank you very much.
I thought you were going to go full chief investment officer on me
What's that?
and say it's yield plus growth.
Yeah.
So I can take your 1.2 and get you 2.4. You just traded away all your growth.
That's right. I mean,
that still makes me mad.
Okay, so here's
I'm serious. Like I want to argue like I want to argue that the so there's the thinker and the feeler, and like the feeler part of me is like, no way, I can get more yield and growth, and I can't.
You're remembering the good old days, right?
I don't know if I should talk specifics on the air or do it on bonus content right now or not do it at all. But we did just have a listener. I did a show. We did a Next Wise Step video about retiring on $4 million. And a fan of the show listed a comment. I don't remember what he said, like what his target was. Mm-hmm. Hey, but I'm just going to, once I get here, I'm going to put it all in this blank high dividend fund, one that's in our equity income model.
Right.
And he's like, and that's it. Well, what's the problem? At the time we're recording this, that yield is over 3%. Mm-hmm. And it's equity income. So you're like, I'm getting the stocks and I got the dividend. It's down 3%. When everything else has come back and now it's positive. Well, it's the reason you got that goosed yield is because you're owning more of companies that are paying out dividends instead of growing their share price. Mm-hmm. There is a trade-off, yield plus growth, and you need total return. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we'll leave that here. So, all right, where we're going, we can pick that back up if we want, but then is $1 million enough? And that's where we'll get into 5 factors, magic number, that sort of stuff. We could always circle back to what do people think they need? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're taking the windy road here. Second segment, here we go. How much do you need in order to be able to retire? How much? What's your savings goal? And is that just a number that you emotionally are tied to? Maybe you heard someone else say is their goal, or have you done a 5-factor retirement plan and firmed up? This is my target. This is my goal, and I'm doing what it takes to get there. We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Stay up to date on all Wise Money content. Find us online, wisemoneyshow.com, and then all over social media, wherever you're at, we are there as well. Search the Wise Money Show. All right, so there's surveys done on this every single year, and I'm looking at one that shows right now Americans expect they need about $1.26 million saved up in order to retire. So this banter about, well, is a millionaire a net worth or a saved up number? Apparently, on average, people think they need 1.26 million saved up. I've also got another study right in front of me as well, breaking that down by generation. And younger generations think they need closer to 1.6. Mm-hmm. And I guess I'll just keep going, guys, and then you interrupt me. Mm-hmm.
That'd be interesting, though, to kind of unpack. I know you want to keep going, but is that because younger generations, they have more debt, they are raising kids, they're just at a stage in life where they're needing more of their earned income in order to live their lifestyle, so they just sort of assume more? I don't know. Or do they have bigger lifestyle expectations? I don't know.
And I guess that's where I was going. I would want it to be based on a plan, not based on, here's what I think I need. And I wonder if that think I need is based on 4% withdrawal rate, based on I'm observing others, based on anything. But your financial situation is wildly unique to you. Your lifestyle, the things that you want to do, your goals, it is just very, very different. And it's different than the person that you live next to and you say, well, we live in the same neighborhood. Our houses are about the same value. We drive similar cars. We've got to have similar financial tastes and financial situation. Nope. Not even close. What about your siblings? Well, we were raised in the same household. I know what they do for a living. I bet I know how much they earn. You have no idea. It is wildly different. We've seen behind the curtain of, for thousands of individuals, their financial makeup with no judging or value judgments at all. People are vastly different underneath the surface financially, and you can't really observe that just looking at how they carry themselves.
Well, you can serve two different clients with almost identical incomes, and one household would say, we don't know what to do with all this money. And the next household that has a very similar fact pattern saying, we just can't make it on this money. Mm-hmm. And it's confusing. Like, all of this is confusing. When I think of why is this confusing? So people who think, well, I need X amount of money. Based on what? Because $1 million doesn't make sense to most folks because you've never had $1 million sitting in your living room. You've never been able to hold it, handle it, touch it, feel it, smell it, do anything. I was talking with a client one time, and they had a net worth of about $12 million. And so that $12 million, they had one child. So it was going to their child when they died. And I said, is your child prepared to inherit $12 million? And he said to me, and it stuck with me, he said, no one's prepared to inherit $12 million. And I thought, wow, he's right. Now
I thought you would have said, I think I am.
That's right.
No, I'm not. I'm thankful, quite honestly, that my life is simpler than that. That I don't have, because the unearned money is the hardest money by far, the hardest money to handle. And so is their son ready to handle $12 million? No. And mom and dad, we're saying, no, my adult child is not ready to handle $12 million. Okay, good. We know the body of work. We know what we need to do. Yeah. But I still think, even thinking in terms of, well, would $1 million do it? Would $2 million do it? And especially if you've worked your whole career thinking, hey, once I get here, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
You are going to be so disappointed because I'm telling you, and I was talking with a young team member, and sometimes the younger folks, they're looking and they're thinking, hey, there's an opportunity for me to do fairly well for myself if I work in the industry of financial services. And while that may be true, that's got to be a side effect, because if that's what if that's what you're going for, if you get there, you're going to be disappointed. But it's also quite possible you'll never get there, because that finish line, the touchdown, the end zone, whatever you call it, it just keeps moving.
Yeah. So okay, let's circle back then for retirement. Is $1 million enough? Is there a magic number? And let's call it $1 million. Can you retire on $1 million?
Absolutely, you can.
Yeah,
because we see it happen all the time, right? We see clients who can retire on 2/3 of that or half that, And it all boils down to, again, how much are you planning on spending? What is the fact pattern going to look like for you when you get to retirement? And, pay attention to the fact that when you get to retirement, a lot of people don't realize that housing is going to be the largest thing that you spend money on, your housing expense. That could be your utilities. Maybe some people show up to retirement and they still have a mortgage, or they've upgraded their house right at the eve of retirement, and so they're kind of going right back into debt. The nice thing about a lot of those housing expenses, though, is that many of them are flat. At least the mortgage piece, for example, it's not going to go up over time. But then healthcare is probably going to be your second largest in retirement, followed by food and some of the other basic needs of life. Well, what's the mix going to be for you? How large of a house are you going to live in? Are you going to have more than one house? What is your health going to look like when you get to retirement? Are you going to be kind of forced in a way to spend more of your retirement income on your own health care just because of maybe it's family history or just some of the decisions you made when you were younger, that sort of thing? That's different for everybody, right? And we just see a lot of clients where we help them to figure out, well, what is the right amount for them? And it often ends up being something less than $1 million. At least it has been up to this point. The number's clearly growing, though.
Yeah. What you touched on, I just want to, publicly go out on the air and say, you're welcome. We've had this debate, Joshua Gregory, multiple times of the 5 factors that are all interrelated for your retirement. Which one's most important? And it's always tongue-in-cheek, and of course I'm being silly right now. But spending, I have been claiming, it doesn't get the credit it deserves. That is the one factor. They're all wildly important, but that's the one that is most important because we've seen people successfully retire with $200,000. We've seen people not be able to retire with a couple $1 million. And what's the difference? The primary difference is their lifestyle, how much they spend. But there are 5 factors, because the other one that we're going to touch on, I guess I'll just get into it right now. The other one, if you have a retirement savings goal, say $1 million, what happens if you reach that savings goal at age 52? Well, does that mean I can be done? I originally said I'm going to retire when I get $1 million. Well, what that means is if you retire at 52, now your retirement's going to last longer. We're going to say it that way. Your retirement's going to last longer. We don't know the end date, but retiring sooner means it's going to last longer. Well, let me ask you, if you are going on vacation, do you need more money for a long vacation compared to a short vacation? You need more money for a long vacation. And therefore, if you think it's just a number, once I reach that number, I'm able to retire, but you achieve that early, actually that number needed to be a lot bigger because you're retiring sooner than what you had originally planned.
Yeah, if you said I need $5,000 to spend a week in Europe, and you came up with $5,000 and you said, good, now I'm going to go spend 3 weeks.
Right. We don't think of it like that, right. But that's actually tangibly sort of how it works.
But what a fun conversation to have with your certified financial planner.
Yeah.
You realize that you are ahead of pace on your goal.
Come on.
Does it mean that you are at the finish line necessarily? No. But it does mean that you get to have some fun conversations about recalculating and recalibrating. What is it going to take for you to retire? Could it maybe get moved up a little earlier?
Yeah.
Unnecessary sacrifice. That's what comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Are you doing unnecessary sacrifice?
So it's 5 factors that are all interrelated, decisions that you get to make, and assets or how much you have saved up, that $1 million or whatever is one of them. One of the others, we've got that and more coming up on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
We should go back to that unnecessary sacrifice idea and kind of unpack that.
Yeah. All right, third segment. So we'll break down 5 factors. We'll come back to that, and then
because this is the question. This is why you need to meet with a certified financial planner, because the thinking is, okay, now I got to $1 million, now I'm done, but the real question in my mind is, what was the sacrifice that you made to get you to $1 million? Mm-hmm. And is that still required? Because were you planning on getting to $1 million and
this early or whatever,
and having 30 years to live, and now you've gotten to $1 million and you have 40 years to live? Mm-hmm. That tells me that $1 million isn't enough. And if you've got the habits that get you to $1 million, like the first $1 million's the hardest one. Like the miracle of compound interest is now on your side because the next double gets you to $2 million.
Right.
And so this is where you now have the janitor's key ring. Like the keys you have on your key ring now, you can unlock a bunch of doors.
I feel bad for these janitors these days. I mean, it's probably all pads like key fobs. They only have one, not nearly as important.
I used to look at those guys in high school, and I'm like, man,
I know. Look at everything they can do. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Third segment. All right. Is there ever an ability, a goal, maybe for once I save up a certain amount, I can stop saving. I can keep working, but I can stop saving because that's accomplished. That's done. We're helping with that right now. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. Thanks for being here. My name's Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Stay up to every episode of the Wise Money Show is on YouTube. Go check it out, as well as a lot of other videos as well. Go to YouTube, search the Wise Money Show, subscribe to it there, turn on notifications so you're made aware every time we drop new content. All right, guys, talking about being a millionaire, whether that's enough or not. And really, we've sort of expanded that to say, well, whatever that savings goal is, if it's 1.26 million, which is what people feel they need right now to live comfortably in retirement. Maybe it's 2 million, maybe it's $500,000, whatever that goal is that it? You just need that magic number and then you're set. No, there's 5 factors that are all interrelated to your retirement. One, the first is age. When do you want to be done? And then the other side of that is part of age as well, which your life expectancy, but it's how long is retirement expected to last for you? And I think when you're building this plan, we can go through some best practices. You want to have that, here's my target age. Here would be ideal. And then, yeah, I mean, everyone would say, I'll keep working as long as I need to, but I would expect I'd be able to retire by this age. So typically it's 2 to 3 ages you're talking about with your CFP.
Yeah, I mean, you're emphasizing the need to bring some flexibility to your retirement planning, right? Because you may or may not have the whole game plan play out exactly the way that you intend or you envision. There might be something that sets you back, or maybe the opposite occurs. You receive an inheritance, or the investment world provides some really great tailwinds, and you're just making progress faster than you ever imagined. So just being aware of what would retirement look like at more than one age, and then holding that with an open hand at some level, go pursue the target.
Yeah.
And maybe even pursue your stretch goal, but be recognizing or willing that, okay, if we need to, we might extend our working career just a little bit longer, and we have sort of a fallback position.
Awareness is a key word that you just said, Josh. And the next one is spending. The next factor is spending. What do you expect to spend in retirement? That's your base expenses. That's also any debt. Will you still have a mortgage? Will you buy a new house and then have a new mortgage? But the other, and we just had this recently, working with some new folks. When they reach out to us and would like to start the planning process, we do a case class where multiple advisors all get together, different financial professionals, analyze their financial situation, and all sort of figure out, all right, well, what are the key planning areas? How can we help? And it's fantastic collaboration. There's always different perspectives and more that you see when there's a group of professionals in the room. And we realized these folks said, hey, we want to spend X amount in retirement. And I don't think they were factoring in health insurance or taxes. They were very clear. We want to spend this amount on our basic lifestyle and this amount for travel. And it was a large amount. And we were looking and saying, well, do we think that includes these other things and like taxes because they're self-employed? Are they thinking they're including taxes? Your spending number needs to base expenses, one-time expenses, insurances, taxes, and inflation, if not anything else that is important to you that you envision spending money on in retirement. That all needs to be factored in there. So That's the second area. Third area is retirement income. How are you going to optimize Social Security for your specific situation? Is it best for you to draw immediately, delay a little bit, delay until January so that you've got some tax planning flexibility, delay all the way until 70? If you're married or you've been married before, how does that play into making that optimization on Social Security? Other income sources as well in retirement?
Yeah, using that word optimize Social Security, most people are not doing that, right? They're just paying attention to what did my neighbor do, what did my brother-in-law do, what's the average American doing, or when is the soonest that I can get my hands on some of that money because I've heard that this system's broken and I better get mine while I can. I encourage you to save that decision for one that you really do have in the context of this financial plan. And it's a conversation you're having with your certified financial planner, not your neighbor, not your barber, whoever is in your life with a loud voice persuading you, you just should take this as soon as possible. That may or may not be appropriate for you in your unique situation.
Yeah. Fourth factor for retirement is that how much do you have saved up, but it's also how much are you saving. And right after this, we're going to talk about, well, do you ever reach a point where you can say, nah, I'm done saving. I'm not yet ready to retire, but I'm done saving. And then the last factor is how much investment risk you're comfortable with those dollars. Because going back to this $1 million, if you say, well, I don't want to, as soon as I get that $1 million saved up, I can't stomach any variation with it. Mm-hmm. If it goes from $1 million to $750, I'm going to panic. Yeah. Well, then that means your risk tolerance is going to be lower and the growth on those dollars might not be as high as it needs to be. So those are the 5 factors. And the point isn't just to lay them out, but to point out that they're interrelated. A decision in one area is going to impact your options in the other. Work with your certified financial planner, build out those 5 factors, then stress test them. And to take your first step, you can go to wisemoneyguides.com. We've got a workbook that will help you talk through and make some decisions in those areas, prepare you for that upcoming meeting with your CFP.
Yeah, that stress test that you were describing, though, the output of that should be some sort of probability of success for you. Mm-hmm. Based on your decision, your vision for those 5 factors, what are the odds that your investments and your nest egg and everything, it's going to last as long as you need to? What are the odds or the probability that this is going to be a successful retirement? And there are some folks who they are on pace to have a huge, high probability of success, maybe something north of 90% probability of success. And sometimes that's a clue to us that, maybe there are some sacrifices that are being made unnecessarily. Kevin, you kind of referenced that earlier, but I don't know. You guys see any examples of that here recently where, people are maybe trying to trying to create such a sure thing that they're maybe selling themselves short on some of their options or the work that they need to be doing to get ready for retirement.
Yeah, I think that is where the analysis work comes in and running Monte Carlo simulations, and I don't want to get really technical, but just basically stress testing the plan. Because if you have a plan that works 100% of the time, it's likely you're not taking enough risk, which is that that doesn't actually make sense because you think no. If I take less risk, I have all the money in the bank. But this is where if I have a plan that works 100% of the time, it's likely there's some unnecessary sacrifice. And again, this is why you want to work with your certified financial planner, because we're looking at somewhere in a 90 percentile type of a range.
Yeah, the one that I see the most is people could afford either to retire a little bit earlier, or if they're already in retirement and they have a 95% probability of success. To me, that's often a sign that could they be living on more of their resources? Could they be spending more and still be okay?
Right. And the problem is, if I've spent 50 years living at a certain level, which lets me have this amount of resources, spending more likely doesn't give me more pleasure. Mm-hmm. And so then there's a point in time where I have to figure out what is the vision for these dollars, because no one takes it with them.
Yeah. And I think where you're going with this is a lot of people start to conclude, man, if I'm on pace to have a whole bunch of money left over at the end of retirement, is there something great I could be doing with it to bless the next generation or to support an important mission or whatever. And so I think of giving money away as a form of consumption, like you're kind of burning off some of these dollars. And it does help to bring your probability of success down a little bit, and still be within a range that is comfortable and gives you a high likelihood that retirement's going to be just fine, even with giving that extra $10,000 each year to your local church or whatever.
I'll be contrarian here. I do. Yes, you need to be talking to your CFP and planning appropriately so you know where you stand. However, being ahead of pace, I would argue, is still a good thing because you might retire sooner than what you plan. We've talked about that. You might spend more than what you expect when there's 6 Saturdays and a Sunday, and you might have that first bear market or turbulence in the investment world when you retire and change your risk tolerance. It's good to be ahead. Work with your CFP so you know and you're aware. All right, we've got more coming up here on the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group.
Yeah, I think this next segment we're going to get back to that, I'm sure. Yeah. But I think of the people who ought to be spending more, or maybe they've been hesitant to give some dollars away and now they feel free to. Those are people already in retirement and maybe even a ways into retirement.
Yep. Do you want to pick that back up, or I'm ready for a segment? I want to get back to the root question. Is
$1 million enough, or can you stop saving?
Can you stop saving? Mm-hmm. If you reach a certain level, does
good.
it ever
Let's
make sense?
Let's answer that question for all the...
Because I think that provides some interesting stories for people. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, fourth segment. Here we go. Landing the plane. Thanks for being here. This is the Wise Money Show with Korhorn Financial Group. My name is Mike Bernard. With me in the KFG studios, Kevin Korhorn and Josh Gregory. Every episode of the Wise Money Show is on podcast. Wherever you listen, just search the Wise Money Show. Subscribe to it there. Rate the program there as well. We appreciate it. Talking about if you have a goal of reaching a certain milestone in your investment savings, $1 million per se, is that enough? Is there more to it? And really the root of that question was if saving up $1 million was your goal, is there ever the chance or the plan, or is it appropriate if you reach that savings goal early to then say, all right, I can keep working, but I don't need to save anymore? We actually get this. I'm not going to say all the time, but more frequently than you might think. Maybe you've never even considered this before. But a lot of times when people envision retirement or financial independence, we talked about recently with July 4th, they reach a level of savings where they say, boy, it would be great to make this change in my life. And if I make that change, do I need to keep hustling in such a way that I need to continue savings, or have I fed it enough? Guys, what do you think?
Well, so this is I like the question for sure. If your plan says, hey, once I hit $1 million, if I'm 55 and I've got to have $1 million at 65 to be able to retire. So I'm 55 and I already hit that mark and I'm going to work for the next 10 years. Yeah, you can leave it alone. And in theory, it probably should double and be $2 million by the time you're 65.
Yep.
So then what do you do? Do you quit saving? And one of the things that I would look at is, why am I saving? Because one of the reasons why I was saving was to get to my $1 million. I got there. The other reason why I'm saving is the tax benefits of saving. So this is where, now that I'm 55, I can put extra money in my HSA. Now that I'm north of 50, I can put extra money in my 401k. So if you said, hey, I don't want to save anymore, I'll take my lumps, pay the taxes, and go do lifestyle stuff with the money that I used to save, I would say, good on you. Go do that. No one's ever been really disappointed that they had too much money accumulated. Yeah. So I like running up the score a little bit, and it just gives you different options if you are over. Mm-hmm. But again, don't sacrifice unnecessarily, and don't make the people in your life miserable. We declared a long time ago we weren't going to talk about how expensive stuff is on vacation, because if you're on vacation and there's a person or a few people saying, "Oh, that's really expensive," I'm like, "Okay, let's stay home then. Can we just stay home?"
Sorry, honey.
Takes the fun out of it.
That's me.
That's right.
And with these young kids, but you got to teach them. You got to tell them that
word.
lunch used to be $3 and now it's 10. You have to tell them, Kevin, because they don't know.
That's right.
And I'm like, "Nope. Listen, if this is too expensive, we'll just stay home because I can't take it emotionally."
That's funny. The only thing that I would add to what you were just saying, Kevin, is if you get to the end of savings, like you have saved enough and you could stop contributing to your retirement accounts, I would ask you, okay, well, then what are you going to do with those dollars instead each month or each year? Because you do have the freedom at that point to really ramp up your lifestyle. If you had been saving 20 grand a year and now all of a sudden you decide I want to spend an extra 20 grand a year, that could be risky in the sense of, does that get you used to a lifestyle that your retirement plan never counted on supporting?
Yep.
Right? And so if all of a sudden you were to take an extra 20 grand of spending and put that into the retirement analysis, maybe then you're not actually ahead of pace anymore. Because again, the spending number is the most sensitive of all of the 5 factors that we were talking about. And so I think you do have to be careful there, but maybe you're saving up for some things that are one-timers. Instead of saving for retirement, we're going to start taking the last 3 or 4 years of our working career and we're going to save up for, maybe it's a kitchen remodel, or maybe it's you're purchasing some fresh vehicles that are going to take you into retirement. Being careful, though, that are you structurally changing your lifestyle or the expenses? If you said, hey, we're going to save up now since we're ahead of pace, we're going to buy a second house. All right, well, now you are kind of permanently setting some new expenses out there in retirement. And I would want to re-stress test your retirement forecast to make sure that extra spending still fits.
I wish there was a term for that. I'm just kidding. The Bernard paradox. I'm naming it the Bernard paradox. It's like a double-edged sword. The more you spend, the more you need to have saved up. But the more you spend, the harder it is to save those dollars up. And the opposite's true as well. The less you spend, you don't need as much saved up, but the less you spend, the more capacity to save. And Josh, you're right. What I've seen more in practice, so those are great warnings. What I've seen more in practice from the folks that say, are we able to stop saving? It's because they want to make a change in their life. And I don't mean a change in their life in spending habits, a change in their life. Can I work part-time? I feel like I have been grinding it. My consulting gig, I'm working, 60 hours a week, and I'm not joking. A lot of people say that. I'm actually doing it, and I've just been grinding. It's high stress. I've got the phone attached to my hip at all time, and I'd love to get off of that grind. And in doing so, have a pay cut, and in doing so, just live on what we're making. Can I be done saving? Or I want to start a business, or I'm selling my business. And in selling my business, I'll stay on working, but I'll work part-time and I don't need to save. But it all comes back to, Kevin, what you said, is I like building that plan to see if it's possible. But 9 times out of 10, even those folks where you say, yeah, you don't need to save, but you need to manage your lifestyle creep and you need to do these other things, they still end up saving because of the tax benefits. So, but the option is there. You can build out that plan. We just did it. I did it with one of our all-star CFPs, Eric Wood, building it out where these folks were able to sell some of a business and now they wanted to give back to the community. Well, they're in their mid-50s. So do they have enough where they're going to keep working and can afford their lifestyle, but they don't need to save. They might save, but do they need to save? We built out that plan.
I think it's also important to ask yourself the question, all right, according to my plan, according to this forecast, I'm ahead of pace on my retirement savings. Can I stop or can I make those adjustments, as you said? I would ask, okay, is that scenario that you're painting, is that like in perfect conditions when life goes just as planned? have you stress tested even to consider, well, what if one spouse passes away before the other, like way before life expectancy? Does that change any of the outcomes? If you had a long-term care event where all of a sudden something meaningfully changes in your health and you need some custodial type care, like some ongoing help of some sort, did your retirement plan take that into consideration? And sometimes the continue saving decision is because, all right, I have the game plan in place. I'm ready for retirement if the sun is shining and the birds are chirping and life is wonderful. Now we're preparing for storm clouds.
Yep.
And the unforeseen and the stuff that actually we don't even want to talk about much and we hope doesn't apply to us. But we're going to build up an extra cushion just in case for some of that stuff.
Yep. All right. So guys, as we wrap up here, what's the takeaway? What are the takeaways? What are the action items that people need to take from this conversation?
I hope what you would take away is that this is the idea of, am I ready for retirement? That's a question to be pondering and discussing with your certified financial planner, and then actually building a plan to calculate, well, what is the right amount for you? And $1 million has been a fun milestone for a lot of people to be targeting, but it may actually have them underprepared for retirement, depending on what it is that they're trying to achieve. And so, do you know what you need for retirement? And if you don't confidently know that you're on pace for that amount, it's time. It's time to talk to a certified financial planner, a guide that has walked this road many times with other people and can help deliver you safely to that retirement picture that you have envisioned for yourself.
And with my half of the time, I would say wisemoneyguides.com.
Yeah, there you go.
That's good.
Take your first step there. Because $1 million might not be the finish line, might be the starting point. Work with your CFP on that. That's all the time we have for today. On behalf of Josh Gregory, Kevin Corhorn, all of us at Corhorn Financial Group, have a great weekend. We'll see you next Saturday for the Wise Money Show with Corhorn Financial Group.
Securities offered through Silver Oak Securities, member FINRA/SIPC. Advisory services offered through KFG Wealth Management, LLC. Doing business as Corhorn Financial Group. KFG Wealth Management, LLC and Silver Oak Securities Incorporated companies are unaffiliated.